The president tried to destroy my late dad's car, and now she's paying for it. I never wanted to live in an HOA community, and technically, I don't. My property predates the HOA's formation, and my late father had the foresight to ensure that our home was never part of their jurisdiction. But that hasn't stopped Karen, the HOA president, from making my life miserable. For months, she's tried to bully me into compliance, harassment letters, fake fines, and even calling the city over bogus violations. But it all escalated when she set her sights on my most prized possession, my late father's vintage 1967 Chevy Impala, which he spent years restoring before he passed. She wanted it gone, and she was willing to play dirty to make it happen. The harassment begins. Ever since I moved back into my childhood home after my dad's passing, Karen has been relentless. The first letter came a week after I unpacked. Dear homeowner, your vehicle is in violation of HOA guidelines. All cars parked in driveways must be less than 10 years old and in good condition. Please remove the unsightly vehicle within 7 days to avoid penalties. Sincerely, Karen, HOA President. I tossed it in the trash. She had no authority over me. The next letter threatened fines. The one after that included a friendly reminder that vehicles deemed abandoned or unregistered would be reported to the city. Except, my car wasn't abandoned. It was fully registered, insured, and in mint condition. Karen just hated that an old car sat in my driveway, and she wanted me to bend to her HOA's ridiculous standards, even though I legally wasn't part of it. She calls the city, and it backfires. About a month into her harassment campaign, I came home to find a code enforcement officer inspecting my car. I walked up and asked what was going on. The guy seemed uncomfortable, but he explained. We got a complaint about an abandoned vehicle on the property. The HOA president called it in. I pulled out my registration, insurance, and title, proving everything was in order. The officer nodded. This is fine. She wasted our time. But before leaving, he hesitated. You should know, she tried to claim this house was part of the HOA. We checked the county records. It's not. So Karen had lied to the city, hoping they'd force me to comply. It backfired. I figured she'd back off after getting caught. I was wrong. She gets desperate and dangerous. After weeks of radio silence, I thought the nightmare was over. Then, one morning, I woke up to find my car vandalized. The windshield was smashed in. Deep scratches ran along the sides like someone had taken a key to it. And the tires? Slashed. I checked my security cameras, and there she was. Karen. In the middle of the night, she and 2 other HOA board members snuck onto my property. They wore masks, but Karen's voice was unmistakable as she whispered orders. The fallout: Karen loses everything. The police arrested all 3 of them for vandalism and trespassing. Karen tried to play dumb, claiming she thought my car was an eyesore ruining the neighborhood. But with the video evidence, there was no way out. The court slammed them with fines and ordered them to pay for the damages. My lawyer also helped me file for a restraining order, meaning Karen couldn't come near my property again. But the best part? The HOA tried to distance themselves from her. The other homeowners were furious that Karen's antics had dragged them into a legal mess. A recall vote was held, and she was kicked off the board. And since she had to pay thousands in damages and legal fees, she ended up selling her house and moving away. Now, peace at last. My car is fully restored now, shining in my driveway just as my dad would have wanted. No more harassment letters, no more fake fines, just peace and quiet. Karen thought she could bully me into submission. She learned the hard way that I don't back down. Story 2. HOA President Karen destroyed my mailbox, now I'm setting a trap. I never wanted to be part of an HOA. And technically, I'm not. My home was built long before the HOA existed, and when my father purchased it decades ago, he made sure that our property would remain separate from any future HOA governance. So when a group of power-hungry suburbanites formed an HOA for the rest of the neighborhood, my house was exempt. Legally, they have zero authority over me. But that hasn't stopped Karen, the HOA president, from trying to control me like I'm one of her subjects. For months, she has harassed me with fake fines, complaints, and outright lies to the city, all because I won't bow to her ridiculous rules. But things escalated to vandalism when I found my mailbox completely destroyed one morning. The post was snapped in half, the box itself crushed beyond recognition. Karen did it. I knew it. But I had no proof. So now? I'm setting a trap. Months of harassment before the mailbox incident. Ever since I moved back into my family home, Karen has made it her personal mission to make my life miserable. First, it was the fake violation notices. She'd leave passive-aggressive letters in my mailbox about how my driveway wasn't up to HOA standards, not that she had any say in it, how my grass wasn't trimmed to the community's preferred length, or how my porch light wasn't the right color. I ignored them. She had no authority. Then came the fake fines. She had the audacity to send me an invoice for $500 in HOA fees. When I confronted her, she smirked and said, "I know your house is technically exempt, but it would be easier for everyone if you just follow the rules like a good neighbor." I laughed in her face and walked away. Then she started calling the city on me. She tried to get code enforcement to fine me for having an abandoned vehicle, my registered, insured classic car. She reported me for excessive noise. I don't even play music loudly, and she even tried to claim my house was violating zoning laws. The city shut her down every single time. I thought she'd finally give up. But then she got violent. Karen destroys my mailbox, and I have no proof. One morning, I walked outside to get my mail and found my mailbox completely obliterated. The wooden post was snapped in half, the metal box crushed and dented, and my mail was scattered across the lawn. I knew exactly who was behind it. Karen had been losing her battle against me for months. This was a tantrum. But when I called the police, they asked the dreaded question. "Do you have any proof?" I didn't. No cameras. No witnesses. Just a gut feeling and months of her harassment. The officer was sympathetic but said without evidence, there wasn't much they could do. I could file a report, but it wouldn't go anywhere unless I caught her in the act. That's when I realized, I needed to trap her, installing security cameras and baiting the trap. I went to a local hardware store that same day and bought 3 high-quality security cameras. One aimed directly at my new mailbox. One covering my driveway and front yard. One hidden near my porch, giving a wide-angle view of the street. I made sure they had night vision, motion detection, and cloud storage. But I didn't stop there. I made sure Karen knew they were there. I didn't hide the installation. I set up the cameras in broad daylight, making a show of adjusting them and testing angles. Karen saw the whole thing from her front porch. I even waved. She scowled and went back inside. Then, I waited. Karen falls for the trap. For a week, nothing happened. I thought maybe she'd finally gotten scared. Then, one night at around 2 a.m., my phone pinged. Motion detected. I opened the security app, and there she was, Karen, sneaking onto my property. She was wearing dark clothing, but her blonde bob was unmistakable. She crouched near my mailbox, looking around nervously. Then, she pulled out a crowbar. This idiot was about to destroy my mailbox again. I hit record and watched as she pried at the post, trying to snap it like she had before. But this time, I had reinforced it with a metal core. She struggled. She got frustrated. Then she pulled out spray paint and started graffitiing my fence. That was all I needed. I called the police right then and there. The best arrest ever. It took about 10 minutes for the cops to arrive, but they caught Karen red-handed. She tried to bolt when she saw the headlights, but it was too late. I walked outside, pretending to be confused. "Oh wow, what's going on?" I asked innocently. One officer gestured at Karen. "We caught her vandalizing your property. Do you want to press charges?" I looked at Karen, who was now sobbing. "I was just trying to improve the neighborhood. He's ruining our community," she wailed. The officer ignored her. "Do you want to press charges?" he asked again. I smiled. "Absolutely." The fallout: Karen loses everything. Karen was arrested for trespassing, vandalism, and destruction of property. She had to pay for the damages, and my lawyer helped me file a restraining order against her. Now, she can't come within 100 feet of my house. But the best part? The HOA tried to distance themselves from her. Apparently, Karen had already been on thin ice with the board for causing legal trouble. After my incident, they voted to remove her as president. And without her power trip? She couldn't handle it. Karen sold her house and moved away. Peace at last. Now, my mailbox stands tall, my property is finally respected, and Karen is gone. The best part? I still don't have to follow the HOA's ridiculous rules. And after all that? They know better than to mess with me ever again. Story 3. HOA Karen declared war on me, now she's the one paying the price. I never wanted to be part of an HOA. My house was built before the HOA existed, and when my grandfather bought it decades ago, he made sure it would remain separate from any future neighborhood associations. So when a group of power-hungry busybodies formed an HOA years later, my house remained legally exempt. But that didn't stop Karen, the HOA president, from making my life a living hell. For months, she harassed me with fake violations, called the city with bogus complaints, and even fined me for breaking rules that don't apply to me. When I ignored her, she escalated. She trespassed onto my property, damaged my garden, and even tried to tow my classic car from my driveway. But the final straw? She destroyed my backyard fence. And that's when I decided it was time to take her down. The first wave of HOA harassment. I moved into my grandfather's house after he passed away. The house itself is old but well maintained, sitting on a large lot with a detached garage and a garden my grandfather spent years perfecting. From the moment I moved in, Karen decided I was a problem. She showed up on my doorstep within a week, clipboard in hand. Hi. I'm Karen, president of the HOA. We just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood and let you know about our community guidelines. I cut her off. I'm not part of the HOA, I said. My property is legally exempt. Her smile twitched. Oh, but we like to think of the HOA as something that benefits everyone. Wouldn't you like to voluntarily contribute? It's only $500 per year. I laughed. Out loud. No thanks. I started to shut the door, but she jammed her clipboard between the frame. Just so you know, she said, voice sweet as poison, we still have community standards. It would be best if you followed them. She left after that, but I should have known that was just the beginning. The fake violation notices and bogus fines. A week later, I found a bright yellow notice taped to my front door. Violation notice: your front yard is not in compliance with HOA guidelines. You have 1 week to address this issue before incurring a fine. I rolled my eyes and tossed it. They had no authority over me. The next day? Another notice. Then another. By the end of the month, I had a stack of fake fines and violation notices demanding money for nonsense. Your trash cans were visible from the street. Your car is not an approved model for driveway parking. Your grass is half an inch too tall. The best one? Your house paint is not HOA approved. You have 30 days to repaint in one of our community colors. I ignored them all. That's when Karen started calling the city on me. The bogus complaints to the city. Karen reported me for operating an unregistered vehicle. My car is fully registered and insured. Unpermitted renovations. I replaced a broken gutter. Running a business from home. I work remotely. Every time the city came out, I had my paperwork ready. They got tired of her calls fast. One inspector even told me, "We've had 14 complaints about your property in the last 2 months." We know it, sir. Karen wasn't getting what she wanted, so she upped the ante. She tried to tow my classic car. One Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of a tow truck in my driveway. Karen had actually called a private towing company to take my classic 1967 Mustang. I ran outside in my pajamas, yelling at the tow driver to stop. The HOA president said this car was abandoned, he said. I'm not in the HOA. And this car is legally registered. Thankfully, the driver was reasonable. He checked my paperwork, apologized, and left. Karen, standing on the sidewalk with her arms crossed, screamed at him, demanding he tow it anyway. The driver just laughed and drove off. I was livid. But she still wasn't done. The final straw: Karen destroys my fence. One morning, I came outside to find my entire backyard fence was gone. The wooden panels had been ripped out of the ground, nails and splintered wood scattered everywhere. I checked my security cameras. And there she was. Karen and two men had come in the night with tools, tore down my fence, and hauled it off in a truck. I called the police. This time, I had proof. Taking Karen down. When the police showed up, I showed them the footage. The officer's eyebrows shot up. This is blatant vandalism and trespassing. I pressed charges. Karen was arrested that evening. But I wasn't done. I filed a lawsuit for property damage, harassment, and emotional distress. The court battle took months, but I won. Karen had to pay me $15,000 in damages, rebuild my fence, with a licensed contractor, issue a public apology. The HOA tried to defend her, until they realized they could be held liable, too. They immediately removed her as president and threw her under the bus. Karen loses everything. After the lawsuit, Karen sold her house and moved away. She tried to start over in another town, but with a criminal record and her notorious reputation, she was shunned. The HOA, desperate to fix its image, actually invited me to join. I declined. But I did make one request. I want a letter in writing stating that my property is permanently exempt from all HOA rules, now and forever. They agreed. And now? Karen is gone. My property is safe. And the HOA? They know better than to ever mess with me again. Please like, share and subscribe to my channel for more stories.